Hello. Happy Sunday. This is going to be an interesting podcast today. So, I'm noticing that there's a trend about people overworking themselves into a frenzy, sometimes even to death, because they want to embrace some idea that somewhere along the lines of their lives, they grew up or they were indoctrinated in school or their parents told them that this is how we did things. And when you grow up, that's how you're going to be doing things. And wanted to address before going into my short workshops over the next few days, the topic of embracing imperfection, actually getting good at appreciating who we are and why we are imperfect, and taking those points as learning opportunities and growing from those opportunities. And I want to introduce to you some even more interesting elements today from the Japanese. I'm drawing a lot of lessons from the Japanese. I spent some time in Japan, but it took me a long time to mature into a certain mindset where I would actually appreciate some of these lessons. And they came in handy when things got really rough during many ups and downs in my life. And actually I compiled them into a system. And I'm sure you've been here before, you've heard about my accelerated program. But today I want to talk about just having given ourselves a break for a change. And this is all about discovering, we could call it cracks in a pot. Like kintsugi is a concept of when you break a pot, you break something, and the Japanese take something that was useful, once had life, it had purpose, and put it back together, but beautified the broken pieces. So the whole became somewhat more enhanced than the original. And sometimes we want to hang on to the original selves, which is interesting. It's easier to hang on to the old and rather than embrace the new. And none of us are immune to this, by the way. This is just a fact of life. We really want to be able to always do the same thing. And then when we think that we get good at it, we really enjoy the comfort of being able to do one thing only for a long time. Because comfort is basically what kills dreams, but we seem to embrace it because our brains are set up in a way that, and I'll talk some more about this over the next few days, and possibly weeks, is that we get indoctrinated by ourselves and the external factors, or the people and circumstances, and then we adopt all of these elements and then we incorporate them into a new persona, a new attitude, a new personality. And in Kintsugi and Wabi-Sabi is they go hand in hand. And I know these are things that they seem to be kind of ethereal in a way that they're not tangible concepts, but they really are. Just being able to repair something. Can you repair a reputation? Well, you see that every day. You see people that are actually in the public sector. They're in the limelight or they're famous. Public figures all the time have to protect their reputations because that people depend on them. Some people look up to them. And whatever it is that they represent, it's formulated around that personality, that branding. And so this is just one of many examples I could use for fixing something that's really dear to us. And some things are worthy of hanging on to. Some things are really better be let go and then start fresh. But with this concept of the beauty in something that's broken, then our hearts can be repaired. Our emotions can be repaired. There are many ways of recovering from trauma. And that's something I can go into detail on some of the lessons. They're coming. And we can get through many terrible experiences and not be generally be held captive, hostage to these experiences because we attach feelings to them. So here Kintsugi really is just admiring that there was something beautiful. I broke something beautiful recently, and it was something that it was a porcelain figurine that I've had. It's made by a world famous brand. I'm not going to name it, but it's something that every time that I moved, I make sure to bring with me. And out of foolishness, a few months ago, I was moving things around the house, and then I just bumped into it. But just as I watched it in slow motion tumble from the end table, and the lamp followed it, and it was a figurine of the Quixote, in fact, and it decapitated the Quixote, much to my dismay. That's not something I could fix. It's not like it had a monetary value. Its resale value, it was on like one of the first firings for this particular figurine. It's not like I was losing a great deal of money, but I remember when I bought it, because it was the first time I splurged on a big chunk of money just to get something that's, something of luxury. So I had an emotional attachment to this thing, and it made it through 13 moves when I was in military in 20 years. So if you can imagine something that you've been hanging on to, that you think, oh man, I let that go. It was so dear to me, but it was just a thing. And I with the system, I actually recover quickly. Like, okay, but I just told you, I just did it backwards. I didn't really intentionally break it, but I was foolish in not minding what I was doing. Conversely, it is still a figurine, and it's still this resale value was not that high. And the timeline when it was important to me to acquire that has long passed. So, did I want to do a kintsugi on it? No. That was kind of weird to reattach the head to the Quixote. So, he died in his last battle. I had to wrap up the body just like some mafia hit, and I put it in a bag, and I I had to toss it away before I got the desire to really put it back together. It just wasn't the same. But there are some things that are worthy. You have all the pieces, and there is a logical point that where you gather the broken pieces and you want to put them back together. But this time, it's going to improve the whole of the experience. So wabi-sabi in itself is just, it goes hand in hand with kintsugi in that it just, things are not here for a long time. And neither are people, but that we can enjoy them in the moment. And this is one of the things that I advise to clients and other people that have businesses, or they're going to school and then try to desperately juggle daily life, thinking and pursuing the big lie of work-life balance. And whoever invented that should be punished severely. I'm not going to go into detail, a whole list of things that should happen to that person, but really, this is someone who clearly has no life. Clearly, they have not walked barefoot on the ground after a nice rain. Clearly, they have not taken a trip to an unknown place, just out of the blue, pack one overnight bag and just gone someplace. Just to be in awe of the experience every day. Something every day should be new, as though we were just born all over again. And this should be the point where we should all try to achieve, versus getting involved in the proverbial rat race. And I've been on the rat race. I have created many rat races, and then I've already joined other people's rat races. And I hit a point at some time in recent history where I no longer wanted to be part of someone else's rat race. But I created instead something that was more harmonious with the things I wanted to do in my life, and the people that I wanted to help, and the people I want, and generally how I wanted to impact the world. And the idea of filling in just little cracks, broken cracks in the ground, or it could be a vase, or it could be, a broken figurine, or it could be the broken confidence of an employee. If you have a business and there are people working under your command, and they're not top performers because there's something missing. Uh, a lot of these lessons can be applied to just daily activities and operations. Could also be at home to be able to detect early on where it is that we're suffering. Why is it that we're so stressed? Why is it that we're not really enjoying life? And applying these principles of not feeling guilty all the time, of taking time to step back and look at a problem. Is it possible to just walk away from it and come back at a different time? And some of us, and I'm raising my hand if you're not just listening and not watching video, I've done it many times where I had to literally have to get up, put on shoes, and put on a coat and go walk for the fifth time in one day. And I mentioned this in other videos, totally trolling my brain because my brain wants to continue pushing to finish a project, but I'm feeling the burnout. I'm feeling the anxiety of I'm still in this game, but I'm not scoring any points. So is it possible to take a seat at the bench? For me, sitting at the bench is let me go ahead and troll myself and go out for the fifth time to the store. I bought 5 different items that could have been purchased and one visit, but I did it on purpose to first move the body, which is good. And second, to get the mind to reset into doing something completely irrelevant to the project I'm working on. And this is how you work around it. I'm not going to teach in detail today. I just wanted to give you a nice overview, something to consider over the next few days, and giving yourselves grace. And you probably hear this a lot, and it's easier said than done when we're used to pushing ourselves to perform, to achieve, and to be on top of something. It's mostly built on a lie. Most of the time, we're just pushing really hard because we have identified emotionally with the job. And once we do that, we're in big trouble because when the job goes away, the career ends, there's economic strife, something that we didn't think was related or tied to us in any way, because a lot of us have worked thinking that we lived in a vacuum, which is never true, but that we got caught off guard. And when we get caught off guard this way, it's very unpleasant. And this is all about developing ourselves. So we develop perhaps your children or grandchildren as in employees, and where we started out low, and then we ended up being supervisors, and we're trying to mentor other people to move up, because as they move up, we need to not be worried about, I can't hold this position in life. I need to move up too. And sometimes moving up means moving out. And that's a very scary thing. Moving out and away from the one thing that we focused on so furiously for perhaps for years, and suddenly it comes to an end, or the opportunity dried up, or we ended up becoming obsolete in the process. And many of us are guilty of this. I'll be the first one to say because I'm here. I'm talking about it. I like discussing the failure because failure is the one point where we start learning. This is when we start growing, and this is when we become more skilled. So these cracks in the fabric or the vase that may be your lives, they can be filled in. The ones that are really worthy of rebuilding, and some things need to be discarded. They don't contain the beauty, they don't contain the inspiration, and they don't contain the elements of your own soul that once inhabited the project or the thing that you so love. Even Stephen King talks about it. Once you create something, you should let it go. Either sell it, give it away, or just kill it. Just delete it. Because you're hanging on to something, a creation, and then you're not doing anything with it. To create more, and it happens to me, I have to constantly create something and launch it, create and launch, because I would ruminate about how much better I can make that one thing. It could be a project, it could be art, it could be a writing piece for a blog. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just hanging on. And this is a type of fear. If we let it go, I may not be able to do something this cool again, which is kind of true because we're hanging on to the old. So in many ways, where we're basking in the beauty of something we created, but we're not really setting it out for others to enjoy. We're not doing anything at all. And that in a way is a bad way to get stuck. So the three things I want to leave you with today are to celebrate your journey. Make sure you always pat yourself on the back for every little incremental improvements you make at anything. Just be the first one to say, don't expect external stimuli to reach your ears, so then your ego can get a little bit of fuel, and then that's your motivation to continue. You should always strive to be self motivated in the first place. If that's not something that you're accustomed to because you have some fears, this is the right time to undertake that. This is going to be a transformative year for a lot of people. I really think that you should take full advantage of what's about to come. And I'm not a mind reader. I don't see into the future, but I see good elements in this year already that things will be opening up. And not being open minded is something that's going to hold you back. Everybody else way ahead of you. You don't want that stress. Then you should be the first ones to initiate something, any change at all, and embrace it. And practice self compassion. Self care is something that I know some of us were not taught. Come from several professions where self care does not exist and is probably frowned upon because of the nature of the work and showing weakness. And those are just not really good traits. And we end up believing that that's actually fact, that self-care is weakness. And it's a complete opposite. Not putting effort and time into self-care at all, whether it's just take a walk or a nap to back away from undertaking so much. It's a good beginning for mental health, to improve our mental health and that of others and how they see us and how we interact with the world. So self-care, self-compassion, definitely. You're not perfect. And so you know that. And I know that. And giving ourselves a break for a change. It is all about taking a break and just refueling, just getting a reset. And taking mindful action. And don't wait until things are perfect. Talking about being imperfect. So being imperfect is an advantage, because if you wait for the right time never comes when you think it's coming. And all the time and effort and energy that's wasted just waiting for the right opportunity to come along so that you can then fully launch into whatever it is that your mind and your heart desires. And you work really hard and you're thinking, I'm holding out. I'm holding out for the right opportunity. I'm holding out for when I'm going to buy that dress when I lose 30 pounds. I'm going to hold off making that left turn across the street because there's a car about half a mile from me. And if I calculate the speed, 25 miles an hour, and I'm not going to make that turn until there are no cars in the street. Then I'll be safe. Safety will kill your dreams instantly. So does comfort. They're one and the same. Comfort, it's a fear, and it's just that covering of lies that keeps you from achieving what you want to achieve in life. So these two, over the next few days, I will have some short, I don't want to call them workshops because they're going to be pre-recorded. I wanted to make them live. Right now it's not possible, but I want to offer you some idea of what I teach in some of my courses for leadership and personal development that are still available. And I just want to present some of these topics one at a time so you can get a better idea of how I teach and the approach that I take, which is very important. And I want to start before the week on a lovely weekend to get you primed up for the next few days. So expect probably be premiering in end of the day. So don't expect them first thing in the morning. And I'm gonna go right into Friday with some elements with Ikigai and Kaizen and some of the time management courses that I've been working on for not just for business owners, for the aspiring entrepreneurs, but also for just someone if you just happen to see me and you decided and your scrolling time that you decided to go ahead and stop and listen to me. That's wonderful. I really appreciate that. I have not forgotten to ask the usual if you could help me out grow as well. Yeah, you can do that by liking this channel and also subscribing so that you can be the first one to get notification when I upload a new video. I want to thank you again. This is Sunday. Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm so glad that you could join me today. And hopefully you're taking something positive that you can take with you for the next week as I release some of these other workshop topics to just to get you across whatever it is you're stuck on, to get you unstuck for 2025 so you can start thriving again. And I'll see you again soon.